Good morning, everybody. Jennifer, Kristin, I'm super excited to be up here with you today. When Brand Innovators actually reached out about moderating a chat and mentioned MassMutual and, of course, Jennifer and Kristin, I jumped at the chance because not only is MassMutual headquartered in my hometown of Boston, but Kristin, you and I have known each other over the years. Jen, I've known you, over the years from afar, and I've admired both of you for your leadership skills in business and really admired that, and that's where I wanted to start today. Two prominent female leaders in the financial services industry, no less, which, let's face it, that has been, predominantly over the years dominated by men, certainly changing and a lot of progress there. But tell us about your journeys in this space, how you navigated, found success, and then any advice you might have for our audience. Jen, you want to take it or Kristin? Sorry.
I'll take that one. So, I started my career in financial services in banking. And I did that for a long time, 15, 20 years, made my way up, got to work in a lot of really exciting brand campaigns, sports deals, naming rights and such. But I realized at one point that I didn't know I didn't know the inner workings of how the work got made. And so I made sort of an unusual move, and I left my cushy job at the bank, and I went into advertising, where I showed up at my first meeting with this gentleman that ran a huge restaurant chain that we had a pitch meeting with, and I didn't prepare anything to talk to him about. So
one way to go.
Yeah. Anyway, I say that only because I had no idea how the industry really worked, but that was an eye-opener, and I spent 15 years in it with teams in strategy and production and creative and account, and really learned how to do all the things. And so when the opportunity to join Jennifer at MassMutual came up, it was the perfect, I think, opportunity for me. And I think she knew that as well because she hugged me on my interview. So she gave me a giant hug in the Starbucks, and I was like, that went well. That's good. It's a good sign. So I was greatly relieved. So I guess I always try to tell younger people, where you end up is not where you start. And you just have to sort of embrace all along the way. And I always found a lot of success in doing more than was asked of me or more than the job description. I looked for opportunities to sort of jump in and tackle projects. At Bank of America, Ann Finucane, who became like a really big vice chairwoman there, the first year she worked there, I volunteered to do the annual report, and that put me on her radar. And I always tried to find things like that to sort of get ahead.
Another great female leader in Anne, for sure. Jennifer, how about you? Tell us about your journey.
Not too dissimilar. I knew you were going to bring up the interview. I was waiting for that. I looked like I had no team. I was super desperate. Not that you weren't great, but it was. But I've been interviewing for months. I was like, finally, there's a real person out there that thinks like me. And no, it was great. So I think it wasn't not too different. I started I went back for my MBA, went into ad agency world, and then spent a lot of time working on different projects and migrated just sort of by default into financial service clients. And I always thought that I would love that element of working on tons of different types of businesses, being in an ad agency. And then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I really like the ability to learn something and learn one industry really well. And then I found out that financial services was something that I could apply much better than AT&T and local RBox. I'm going to age myself if anybody in the room remembers what those were. And switching and boomerang accounts and direct mail. And I was like, this is something I probably, the Counter Prudential and the financial services was more relevant to me. So then I had the opportunity to go client side, and then I went to work at Putnam, and I think that was the first place that I started to learn because we were all suits. There was no casual day. If you finally got to wear shoes, they couldn't be open-toed shoes for women. And I actually personally found suits easier because there's a lot less thought in the morning to just put up the uniform. But I came in as a vice president. We were allowed in the corporate dining room, which just a year earlier had been open to women. And I'm not that old. I am old, but not that old. So it was really sort of one of those, like, I thought it was just the industry, and definitely it was Putnam, because I think Putnam did have a bit of that culture back then. So that was different. I mean, I really did work in a very, very, very male-dominated industry. All of our distribution channels were still very male-dominated. I would travel with our wholesalers, and you get a little nervous when you get picked up at the airport and you're from the home office and you're, like, am I allowed to get in the car? Am I allowed to say the right thing? It was very different, back then. But I think I had the advantage of being raised with a twin brother, and so we were competitive. Anything he could do, I did. We used to try to run up and down the street to race each other for things. We were very, very close. So I kind of had the advantage, I think, that I didn't really think there wasn't any reason that I couldn't. And I also remember thinking that he was really, he made dumb decisions when we were growing up. And I'm like, why? I'm definitely smarter than some of these things. But I think in some ways, which is one of the lessons that I learned when I did get into places like Putnam, and then I went to Fidelity and, over 20 years in financial services, is that I didn't always assume that somebody thought differently of me, even if I was in a room full of men, because I knew that he never had. And if you go in with that attitude, I think that's sometimes can make it worse. I'm really quick to pick up on it when I see it. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't stupid when I didn't see it. But I think that's one of the problems sometimes that happened to me, and I think that's what happens when people go in thinking that that's going to be there. And that's one of the lessons, and maybe the advantages I had of having the environment that I grew up in. And I think that one of the lessons that I would always teach the people that are on my team, and I'm very fortunate, not only with Kristin, but Kristin has brought in a very heavily female team, which I'm very proud of, as we bring in young women. And I've mentored a lot of young women on my teams. I see a lot of times I get invited to meetings, and that how it happens. They walk into that room, and it's a really big conference room, and there's all those chairs on the outside of the big conference table, and all the women go towards those chairs. And I always say to them, why wouldn't you just sit right at that main table like everybody else? Every man that walked in there sat right at that table. And I think it's, respect if you thought you were young and you weren't allowed to, and that wasn't your place, but don't be a recluse. And if you were invited to that meeting, your name on the invite was in the same order as everybody else's. So don't assume that. Show up and contribute like everybody else.
Yes.
I think that's great advice, and something that applies to everybody in any business. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you're right. It's not like it was that long ago, so it's crazy to think you had a corporate dining room, which also doesn't exist much today anymore. That must have been nice. But that it was just only open to men. That's just nuts. So, keeping on with the theme of basically female leadership, empowerment, a core mission at MassMutual is to champion female financial planning. Tell us how MassMutual supports and services women with their financial planning needs. I mean, I love that, and I think that there's more education needed, for women that are taking that on, but either for themselves or for their families. But also, why you're leaning into women's sports and female athletes to convey that message.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of us in the industry talk about women and financial planning, and the needs are definitely distinct and different. And there's a lot of research out there. We did a lot of it when I was at Fidelity, and I think this is why it's important for us to focus on it. It's not unlike any other sort of unique, diverse segment. Women have very different approaches and different needs to their finances and to building a financial plan. We tend to live longer, which means that we need more in retirement. We also tend to make less money to begin with. So there's two things going against us if we don't have a sense of a financial plan. And a lot of time, women take breaks in their career. They'll step out to raise family. They'll go back into the career. They'll step out again multiple times to take care of family members or others around them in their community. And it's not that men don't, it's just historically we carry different patterns in the way that we plan and approach. And even our confidence and our behaviors towards investing is very different than men. So I think focusing and appreciating that is really important for us at MassMutual, and making sure that we, one, not only have a good core of financial advisors that are women, because that is important. People like to work and talk to people that look and feel like them. But also focusing on those core traits and understanding that when we do think about how to talk to women about approaching their finances. So I think that's a really nice logical fit for us when we said, how is the best way to sort of really share the story and build this champion, like, really become the owner of helping people to understand that women think differently, need to build their financial plan. And as we started to look at this audience in women in sports, we saw that a lot of these female athletes were very, very similar. So it's sort of, you don't have to make the stage or set the script. A lot of female athletes, as we all know, these women are not making the same money as the male athletes. Fun fact, Caitlin Clark's starting salary was the same as Hank Aaron. True. Remember where Hank Aaron started and when in the environment. So let alone all the other professional athletes. That's just one of my favorite stats. So we already know that they're not making as much to begin with. They're going to leave their careers, as we've done, because we spent a lot of time in the last 2 years working with a lot of these female athletes, learning what happens with them, learning their careers and what their challenges are. They're going to step out if they want to have children, but it's got to be in the off season because they don't want to lose their spot on the team. And there's just a very, very similar path that most women go through, but it's highlighted. It also gives us a chance to elevate them as a storyline, elevate women's sports in general, and potentially give them some economic benefit, because a lot of them, which is why, if you guys are familiar with Unrivaled, which is the new WNBA team league that's the 3-on-3 that started in Miami, we're now giving them a chance to make a separate set of income. So I think it gives us a lot of ways to really elevate women's sports, give them an opportunity for income, if there's giving them a brand presence and sponsorships, but because they really truly are the story day to day to represent the same challenges that most women do.
Yeah, I love that you've identified that connection between women who have grown up being athletes, which gives a certain skill set for future roles in leadership, being role models, certainly the need for financial planning, and leaning into women's sports from an investment standpoint, from marketing, makes all the sense in the world to me. There's a lot of brands that are jumping on that bandwagon right now because women's sports is finally having its moment, which is good. It still has a long way to go. But tell us how MassMutual remains authentic to that fan base.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Do you want to take that? You want to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say, Melissa, is this isn't the beginning for us with this platform. We have been in the market talking to women for a long time, and I think probably some of the more notable work that we've done to date was with the Washington Post. It was a podcast, Fair Shares podcast. It was a year-long platform. Women, we had financial advisors. They had different planning needs, and really we anchored the communications and everything we did around this on the notion that there's an inaccurate portrayal of women in media. Largely, she overspends. They're always shopping and movies and things like that, and so we sort of took that on and said that's actually not true. And what we do know from our research is actually women make better investors than men. I don't know, don't quote me on that, but that is.
I agree. I'll quote you on that.
Yeah, I mean that's a stat, and I think they're a little bit more conservative than men are, like a little less bullish, and in the long run they end up with more. So we just want to be there to help them along the way.
I think that's great. And, more recently, MassMutual was a founding partner of an organization called TN50 that recently, I think, launched, was it this year, 2024? Can you tell us a little bit about what is TN50 and what the mission is and how MassMutual is involved?
Well, TN50 is a group that was started, again, last year. It's a combination between Axios Media and Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment, and then there were 3 founding brands. We were one of them. It's a sort of pulling together the concept of media, brands, and sports and entertainment to really change and influence the dollars and the economics and the influence of the industry and the ecosystem of women's sports. And how can we build a narrative and build the business around this for the next 50 years, where we're making sure that we're elevating the stories and creating the right portrayal and balance to build this as a business, a true business. So what we did as a partner is we capitalized on major tentpole live events with the first ever dedicated always on streaming news vertical, which is what Sarah and Axios team did. And we created really just this sort of ecosystem of content and events where we were at Cannes, we were at Paris Olympics, we were, a lot of local places here in New York and other areas where we could just create a steady drumbeat. And the commitment really is starting in Paris and going to LA 28 to build the measurement system to show the impact that this really has as an industry and an ecosystem, that there is a measurable impact in being in women's sports as a business enterprise. And I don't know if you want to add on to that, Kristin.
I mean, no, but I will tell you this really exciting work is going to drop in March. So we are deep in production right now. I think it's going to be surprising and get people's attention and hopefully win us some Effies for effectiveness, but also get more women to really think about themselves as investors, which is what we're aiming to do.
That's a great tease. Anything more you can share on that, or just pay attention in March? Okay. Is it too early to see any results from TN50 and the impact of it? I know, again, it just recently launched, but it sounds like you've already done a lot of great things.
Yeah, I think the way we thought about it, because this is like a big platform for us, is we started out with research and thought leadership, which is what Jen was referencing with Axios and the different events that we were at. So we could set the foundation for what's to come. And, what's to come is coming soon. And we were thinking about the right moment to launch it. And it felt like the NCAA women's basketball tournament was a great time. But one of the things that Jen and I have had a lot of conversations about also with our teams is we intend to run this work during men's sports too, because it is not about male versus female. It's about great athleticism, and also there's a lot of female fans who are watching men's sports. So, I don't know that necessarily is unusual, but I think it's a little bit bold.
Yeah, I think that's part of your point about why, how do you do this authentically? I think the real point here is sort of one of the things where I have been, and Laura Carrente, who's a very close, good friend of ours, who started Deep Blue Sports and we've been with Giant Spoon for 7 or 8 years, was the founder of Giant Spoon. I'm sort of at the point where she and I talk about this a lot in a lot of forums like this, is I'm tired of talking about the us versus them. I mean, I think there's a lot of places where we just say, this is a business. And if I went to, our CEO and I said, look, there's a product here. We know that women's NCAA basketball has been hot. Sue Bird was there with the same numbers 8, 9, 10 years ago. There is an audience there. We know there's a buying audience there. The statistics and the data show it. And now that we know that it's in the media places, we're seeing that the people are coming there and there's a real power there. If I took the word women's and sports out of that, nobody would say don't buy and invest in that. And although it may sound like it's a bad thing, I was on a sports club call this week with the industry and a lot of players. There's a value in this now, right, too, because it is the hottest thing to watch in linear TV right now. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't we be here? These women are role models. 94% of the women in the C-suite today were women, female athletes. 52% of them played at university level. These are the future. They're role models, and there's a real value in being in this market right now, and it's just like you said, it's just a place to be.
Well, and it's interesting, some of the stats, just to build on what Jen said, are, there's 76 million women in the workforce today, and of those, 64% are head of household in terms of income, or they share head of household responsibilities. That's a big number, and beyond that, women control $81 trillion of the economy today, and they're set to inherit $3 trillion more in the next 20 years. So, one of the benefits I think we have of working in the industry that we do is we're a 174-year-old company that is always looking to the future in terms of who we want to be and what's going to matter. And so I think that this is a pathway for us to future-proof the brand and the business for a long, long time to come.
Well, and I think you kind of nailed my question. There's a little bit of a setup, but like being authentic, this is not new. This has been the mission, and this has been the strategy for MassMutual for years, having identified that. Kristin, what you just said, I think, leads into what we call the great wealth transfer, right? Can you talk a little bit about that and, certainly a strategy around that? Because I think, again, you're seeing what's to come in the future and some of maybe the activations or the marketing you're doing for that specifically.
Absolutely. So, right now, and I won't give customer numbers because it's obviously proprietary, but, if you look at our customer base, what we're seeing is it's getting younger. It's still a bit older, but it's getting younger. But what's more interesting is as we look toward future customers, Gen Z, I was astounded by this, but we had higher brand awareness and consideration with Gen Z than any other generation. And you would think, Gen X isn't, they have more needs around planning. So that was sort of surprising. And I think when we think about generations to come, and I said this a little bit earlier, we know that Gen Z just wants to watch a good sports product. They don't care if it's men or women. They just want to watch sports played at the highest possible level. And so I think that we're sort of, with Jen and Laura, we're sort of seeing around the corner here and finding a really unique opportunity, and we will definitely activate it really well. But there's a big opportunity here, and we have 1,000 female financial professionals within MassMutual, so we've definitely got a sales force that's aligned to meet the marketplace where they are, and I'm sort of looking forward to seeing, how that whole brand funnel starts working when we put it in market.
Absolutely. I think, also just kind of following along, you're an official partner of the NHL, which, to your point.
Tonight's puck drop, right, Jen?
Yeah.
Yep, first games.
Bruins are in Florida.
I think we're in the wrong room for anybody to be excited about the Bruins, but there we go. Thank you, Ara.
Thank you.
But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your strategy there is you identified, like you said, that's male, female, it's hockey, but I think you identified within that fan base that there's a lot of hockey moms and there's a lot of females that are hockey fans.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Jen.
We did a really fun contest we've been 7 years now at the NHL. And we did a couple years ago, we did a really fun contest with them where we did a national contest. Who was it we stole from? Similar to Kraft, was it?
Yeah.
Where we went out and through social campaigns, we let the entire country vote on the best hockey mom. And I was not a hockey mom. I'm a hockey mom. I didn't go into the contest. But my son did play hockey for a long time. And if any of you guys any of you are in here are hockey moms, okay, right? Well, hockey dads are just as good because we heard a lot of feedback on that. I'm not saying they're not as diehard, but it is relentless. It is the worst equipment bag. My son played every sport. It smells. My daughter wouldn't even pick him up from practice. She's like, he's walking, Mom, that smells. But so we had so much fun, and we did a national contest. The winner we took to All-Star in Las Vegas. She got a glam day, a limo ride, hair done, makeup, red carpet, met the players, and it was so much fun. But it was really highlighting that there is an appreciation for every audience that watches all sports, because we're just really passionate. We think that sports fans, the connection that people have with sports is it's just sort of undeniable, and that's the brand that I have my theory that Kristin left me, but I think that if you can really connect in the most authentic, appropriate way, being a sponsor with a sport, you lose the whole first level of the funnel. They just know you, and you're already at consideration because you're a hockey fan, and I'm a hockey fan, and we're in. So we believe that we can make that with women's sports too.
Agreed. I think it's great. Anything?
Well, no, I mean, that hockey thing was fun. And I think, one other thing that if you are familiar with any of our advertising, and also as we think about women's sports, we're a mutual company, which means that we pay a dividend to our participating policyholders who have whole life policies with us. And so one of the things we are always trying to do in what we put into marketplace is look for ways to highlight people who help along the way, because people don't get there on their own. And I think the idea of the Hockey Mom of the Year was all about, this is a woman who is giving up her personal time. She's helping kids from other countries play the sport. And, even in the new work that we have, we're focusing on coaches and other people. So, that's sort of a piece of the story for us.
Yeah, and I think, Melissa, that gets back to how you say authentic. You know, why are we doing this? Every time we do these things, and we did it with all the NHL work, we've never done a piece of NHL work that doesn't have an actual NHL player in it. From day one, we bought the NHL player rights, and I said, we're never going to put a fake hockey player in a rink and talk about insurance. No one, not a single fan's going to want to see that. And that's the authenticity. So are we showing up when people say, why would MassMutual be there? So authentic to us, it has to represent what we believe in. So our themes always have to be about taking care of others or making sure you're financially sound, and then using the real athletes to tell the real stories. And I think what we've started to see with these female athletes is they are on top of culture and music and fashion, and they are caring, and they've got a slate of stories that are unbelievable. And I think giving them the chance to be really authentic. We had a meeting with Sue Bird once where she said, I showed up for a TV shoot, and they handed me this outfit to wear, and I was like, that's not me. If you don't get that, we're not working together. And I think that's a big barrier that we can help change with working with women's sports, and just let them be themselves and be authentic. And if we can make those two things connect, it's going to work.
Love that. So great chat today. And just to kind of wrap this up, I'm going to, pose a question, Kristin or Jen, if you want to take this. Maybe Kristin, I'll pose this to you. Why is the financial services industry a great place for women to work?
I think I personally have had so much success in financial services, and I've got a team made up of a lot of women. I'm proud to say that I think within the last 2 years, there's been 10 babies born on the team, which is amazing. So we have great benefits for moms and dads also to take time off and be with the kids. So, there's a lot of upward mobility and opportunities. And I guess people have often said to me, because coming from advertising where I worked on, cool brands like Jack Daniels and some others, why would you go into financial services? And for me, it's what makes the whole world go round. I mean, what we do as a company really matters to people, and it makes a difference in their lives and the lives of their children. And Jen has an awesome story about a Christmas present which is it's a good story though.
It was it was when I was trying to explain. We were pitching agencies when I first joined. I was hired, and I had to rebrand the entire company in like 4 months. And they handed me a logo. They're like, here you go. I was like, you're kidding, right? They just fired the agencies, fired my entire team. I was like, oh my God, 170-year-old company. I'm going to blow this thing up. And we were down here. So I'm sort of selling people on what we do. And I was meeting with, actually, it was Giant Spoon, and I said, you have to, MassMutual, for life insurance or any kind of insurance, you really have to care about people. Because you're putting money away every year and in a premium for a life insurance policy.
Yeah.
And like a whole life policy is expensive.
Yeah.
And when you die, you're never going to see what happens, but what it's going to do, but it's going to take care of the people that you love. Yeah. Like it's going to do something big. It's going to help your kids buy a house or send someone to college or something even bigger than that. And I said, and so every once in a while you were like, I want to, what do you do? Like, put it in a present under the Christmas tree and be like, guess what, kids? I paid the premium on your policy again this year, so don't worry, you're taken care of. And I was like, they're either going to be like, Mom, don't talk about that. I don't want you to die. Or they're going to, put me in the driveway and run me over because they can't wait for the money. I'm like, how do you respond to that? You don't talk about it. It is the most selfless thing that you do. And there are people out there that say, I don't want to do that. Put your cash in the mattress. Then don't buy a policy. We're not talking to you. But it really is an industry, and it sounds boring. And I guess what I would say is, it doesn't have to be boring. When I pitched all these agencies, I said, I want people to look at our stuff and say, I never would have thought that was a financial services company. So when you say, why work in a financial services company? Why not make it what you want it to be? Find a way to connect with people to make it what Kristin just described it, to make it what I think it is. It's our job as marketers to show them what it really is, and it doesn't have to be boring.
Well, you're both doing an amazing job at that, and I think we might be at time. I don't know if there's any questions or...
We do. Thank you for asking that. I also have probably one of my favorite parts of my job is that I run MassMutual's foundation and our community responsibility programs. And I am also blessed because we're a 403C, so we're funded, self-funded. And we have 2 national programs, and one of them is called Future Smart. And it is a program that we run with a national company called EverFi, where we go across the country and we educate 6th grade children on financial literacy. Because research has shown, although my kids missed this, that 6th grade is the right age that children can get the basic concepts of saving, spending, and opportunity cost type of decisions. So we go into economically challenged inner city schools across the entire country. We have reached over 5 million children, and next year the program will be 10 years old. We're very pleased with that. And we moved it digital about 4 years ago. And we are educating children on the basic concepts. We've actually moved it to the level where we're teaching their parents, because 82% of the parents acknowledge that the kids need it, but they don't know how to teach them. But that is the age where we should be starting to teach them the basic concepts of financial literacy. So we're starting in those neighborhoods for sure, because it's the best thing we can do for them.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. I think that's a wrap for us.
All right. Thank
So-
you so
you
much,
all.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Melissa.